Good evening, everyone. I'm Rashana Lianagi, a program coordinator at the Academic Division of Colombo School of Business and Management. I welcome you all to the Colombo School of Business and Management and the inauguration session of our third edition of the Advanced Certificate in International Trade Management program. The inauguration will focus on professional qualifications for a lucrative career in international trade management. So today's inauguration session will give you a sense of what we have to offer for you for your growth, and our guest speaker will explain why this program is so important and effective in the current context. From there, our coordinator will lead you through the program structure and what to expect in the coming weeks after the discussion. Just to give a brief about us, the Colombo School of Business and Management, founded 6 years ago, was the outcome of a merge of Sri Lanka's academic and corporate sectors. The school was the brainchild of a leader in the academic sphere, Professor Ranjit Bandara, and a giant in the corporate world, Mr. Dan Gomez. It was their ambition to develop leaders capable of effectively navigating the business environment and achieving success. They felt that this could be accomplished via the power of education, and this is what we are continuously striving for, to give the Sri Lankan people with excellent learning and diversified exposure that will help them thrive in their business world. We're not in the business of providing paper, we are in the business of supporting Sri Lanka in its constant improvement. We work with individuals who have achieved success in their business sectors to establish a platform for our students to interact and learn. As a result, we place a higher value on our resource persons, the instruments that we assist build Sri Lanka's future. A few examples, or rather some of the people that have contributed to our programs include titans such as Bhatia Santosh, Dhammika Pereira, Professor W.D. Lakshman, Mr. Vagapitiya, General Darat Nayaka, DIG Ajit Rohana, Maharaj Javardhana, all these individuals who gave gone to the top of their domain. So we hope that this journey that you are about to embark on will give you the opportunity to enhance your knowledge and sharpen your skills and learn from those who have succeeded. We hope you provide tools to get one step closer to success. So if I talk a bit about this program that we offer, the Advanced Certificate in International Trade Management program is designed to increase industry knowledge and specialized skills required to manage global standards of international trade management. Those who successfully complete this program will be able to confidently handle day-to-day operations connected with procedures, documentation, financing, and entering new global markets, among other relevant subjects in ITM. The prestigious qualification will provide students recognition in the field of international trade management and enable them to secure employment in export-oriented enterprises, both locally and overseas. The Advanced Certificate in International Trade Management is an internationally recognized qualification that provides an extensive understanding of the international trade process. It includes a blend of theory and practice, focuses on ethical trade principles and a range of skills important for global trade. So moving forward, we wish you all the very best in all your future endeavors and hope you will continue to make CSBM your learning partner in the future as well. So now I would like to formally hand over the session to Mr. Pubudu Indatissa, our Assistant General Manager, to take over the session. Over to you.
Yes, once again, very good evening. Thank you so much, Rashana, for that brief introduction about Colombo School of Business Management and the content of the program, how important this particular session as well, the inauguration or very first day at Advanced Certificate in International Trade Management. So therefore, actually, just to start to give a lot of energy, knowledge, enthusiasm, actually, we have invited actually one of the greats in the industry as well. This is my privilege to warmly welcoming Dr. L. Jagat Anil Piris for this inauguration session of International Trade Management, which is going to offer a very professional qualification called Advanced Certificate in International Trade Management. So therefore, my privilege to just to briefly introduce or just to give the profile of Dr. L. Jagat Anil Piris with the audience who are here, because we are very excited to see a overwhelm the audience who want to go through this particular inauguration session, well as they want to continue on their engagement with the course as well. So Dr. L. Jagat Anil Piris is currently served as non-executive board director in few private public companies in Sri Lanka. And he also already served as a senior member on several committees of professional accounting, management, and engineering institute in the country as well. So Dr. Jagat Piris is a very dynamic individual with a unique combination of multidisciplinary professional qualification and proven capabilities, and qualified as a chartered engineer fellow member of the Institute of the Engineers in Sri Lanka, and chartered management accountant, one of the great, with a lot of enthusiasm and experience as well, fellow member of the Chartered Institute of Management Accounts, UK, and chartered manager, fellow member of the Chartered Institute of Managers, UK, and also chartered marketeer, fellow member of the Chartered Institute of Marketing, UK. So he's a very diversified knowledge and skills in many areas. And Bachelor of Science in Engineering from the University of Pennsylvania, specialized in mechanical engineering. And also he's holding a master's degree in business administration, which is MBA from Postgraduate Institute of Management of the Institute or University of Sri Jagadanapuram. So Dr. Jagat Piris has obtained his doctorate degree in business administration from University of Phoenix, Arizona, USA. So as I told you, he's having a versatile knowledge in more dynamic areas. He's a more suitable person to drive this evening as guest speaker as well, having 37 years of working experience, which 28 years have been as CEO in many large organizations in Sri Lanka, especially 4 large organizations. I would like to mention those as Managing Director, CEO of 3 leading manufacturing companies in the ceramic industry, namely Dangote Porcelain PLC, well-known brand in Sri Lanka. We are doing quite a lot of export and bringing a lot of forex to the country, and Lanka Ceramic PLC and Royal Fernwood Porcelain Limited as well. And he was elected as the president of National Chamber of Exporters of Sri Lanka in 2021 and held this position until 2024. Because NCE, you all know, very famous, because CSP is partnering with NCE, and also NIOE, National Institute of Exporters, which comes under NCE, where actually we are collaborate with them to take this program forward as well. So Dr. Jagat Piris was the president of the National Chamber of Exporters as well, 2011, as I just mentioned just before, and served as visiting lecturer at Postgraduate Institute of Management in Sri Lanka and Information Technology and the National School of Business Management NSBM for several years. Lot of knowledge and skills. And also I would like to just to highlight some key award that he has achieved during his its engagement as one of the key figures in Sri Lanka, well as globally as well. And Entrepreneur of the Year, Sri Lanka 2002, the Federal Chamber of Commerce in Sri Lanka. And Business Leader of the Year, Sri Lanka 2004, Chartered Institute of Management Accountant, Sri Lanka and Division. And also Platinum Award winner for Outstanding Professional Achievement in year 2011, which means 2011, and also awarded for Excellence in Business Management 2012, and which is given by Institute of Certified Management Accountant in Sri Lanka, and Lifetime Achievement Award for Professional Excellence in 2016, Postgraduate Institute of Management Alumni in Sri Lanka. So Dr. Jagat Piris is holding many qualifications, award, knowledge, and also wisdom of Sri Lanka when it comes to the international trade management. So therefore, it is my privilege to warmly welcome Dr. L. Jagat Anil Piris to deliver the keynote speech on behalf of the audience who are eagerly waiting to witness this one of the exciting moments with Colombo School of Business Management as well. So thank you so much, accepting our special invitation as well, Dr. Jagat Piris. So I know you're extremely busy as well. However, I would like to warmly welcome once again to the forum. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pubudu. Thank you very much for a very generous introduction. Am I audible and visible?
Yes, Doctor, audible and visible very well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And good evening, everybody. I'm glad to take this opportunity to give some views of mine on international trade management to an audience which have been selected by the Colombo School of Business Management. I understand that they are launching the program on International Trade Management Advanced Certificate course with the assistance of the National Chamber of Exporters in Sri Lanka and also the National Institute of Exports in Sri Lanka. I think this is a very prudent topic to discuss at this moment, because with the current crisis faced by the country, there's a lot of turmoil in the country because of problems with foreign exchange. This is a key subject that all of us should be learning and also wherever possible practicing. It's not only for the people who are involved in the international trade management fields, but also to others. This is a very, very important and vital subject at this moment of time. In order to make sure that everybody understands what I'm presenting, I will be talking about very basic things as well, very basic principles of the subject. So kindly excuse me for those people who are already in the industry, and for them who already know these special basic principles and information is not new to them. So my apologies to them for being too basic. But of course, there are people who are trying to look at this industry as a starting point or as a career. So they may need to understand certain basic things. So for the benefit of those people who are new to the industry, I will touch on some basics as well. The subject of international trade management requires a knowledge of several subjects. It's a multidisciplinary field. You need to know something of economics, politics, geography, accounting, and also marketing. Then we need to know something about banking and also shipping. So it's quite a vast area that you cover. But of course, you don't need to be a master of any of those, but you should know a little bit of everything. So that's going to be helpful if you're going on a career on international trade. Knowing something about little bit, not too much. You don't need to go into deep, but little bit of all these subjects would be useful. I have gone through the syllabus that the Colombo School of Business Management has prepared for the advanced certificate in international trade management. And I find that almost all of these areas are covered. I think they're well covered, adequately covered for anybody to enter into the field of international trade management. So my congratulations to the team who have prepared that syllabus, and also to Colombo School of Business Management for introducing this type of program to the benefit of all those who are interested in the field. Now, if we go into the subject matter, some people always feel that international trade management is only to do with exports. It's not only exports. It has to do with both exports and imports. So exports are also important. Imports are also equally important. So right now in our country, we are focusing everything on exports and try to reduce the imports as much as possible. In my personal view, that this is not a strategy that we should be following. Of course, because of the current state crisis situation, we have no option but to limit imports. But you have to look at both exports and imports in order to grow your exports. If you try to cut down on your imports, automatically your exports will also come down. I'll take an example. If the two of the top trading countries in the world, that is USA and also China. USA is in number 1 and China is in number 2. USA imports 2.4 trillion, that is T. 1,000 million is 1 trillion. So they import 2.4 trillion products and services every year. I'm talking about 2019 because 2020 and 21 have been COVID years. The figures are distorted. So we will take 2019 as the reference year so that it gives some sort of yardstick for us to measure how we compare with other countries. So in 2019, imports to USA was 2.4 trillion US dollars. And the exports were 2.1 trillion US dollars. Almost there. Both exports and imports are both over 2 trillion US dollars. If you take China, everybody knows that China is sort of the vendor for so many products to all over the world, countries all over the world. They imported $2.2 trillion in 2019. They also imported $2.2 trillion. And they exported $2.6 trillion. They are, of course, they have more exports than imports. Whereas the USA, they have a little bit less in exports when compared to imports. So what I'm trying to emphasize is, it does not mean that countries who are exporting does not import. They do a lot of imports, because very often for exports, you need a lot of imported raw materials, machinery, and maybe other services as well. So you can't have only exports and not have imports. If you take, if you want to improve exports, you need to have a reasonable amount of imports in the country as well. Now that is the two top in the list, that is USA and China. Now let's take Sri Lanka. Also in 2019, that is the pre-COVID era, Sri Lanka imported 23 billion, this is B, whereas in USA and China, it was in trillions. Now we are talking about in billions. 1,000 million is 1 billion. We imported 23 billion US dollars in 2019, and we exported only 12 billion. So the gap is too much, too high. There is a huge gap between the exports and the imports. That was one of the, if you take the 2019, then of course since 2021, there have been a reduction in imports, because that's a government controlled reduction. Not that the market does not need the imports, but it has been forcefully put into the market because we don't have foreign exchange to buy the imports. So in Sri Lanka, we have never been exporting more than 12 billion US dollars. That has been our maximum, right? Maybe there are 1 or 2 years where it may have gone to 1 billion plus or minus, but generally our exports have been limited to 12 billion. But of course, this year we are expecting something like 15 billion in 2022. But right now, if you take the historical records, Sri Lanka has been generally around 12 billion exports. So this is one particular reason what we have to look at. Probably because our imports are less, not as much as other countries, probably there's not sort of a lot of encouragement for the exports also. So we would let's discuss that also later on in this presentation, what we could do to increase our exports. Then let's take some other countries in the region, say Vietnam. Now, say Vietnam, well, let me say, get the figures. Vietnam is exporting something like, right now, 250 billion US dollars exporting. Bangladesh is exporting 40 billion US dollars. And if you take Sri Lanka, as I said, it's only about 12 billion exports. But if you take the figures, corresponding figures in 1995, all three countries, that is Bangladesh, Vietnam, and Sri Lanka, were around US $5 billion. So which means we were almost the same. Sri Lanka used to export the same amount of goods and services as did Bangladesh and Vietnam. So where did we go wrong? Why have they gone so high in the exports, whereas we have been more or less stagnant? Because the reason for the not growing our exports can be many, but let's see what other countries did better than us. How did they grow their exports so rapidly, whereas we have been only having exports of about only 12 billion from about 6 billion in 1995. So over a period of 25 years, we have only increased by about three-folds, whereas others have increased by so many folds. Now let's see the products that Sri Lanka is exporting right now. So if you see the products, there are agricultural produce, tea, rubber, coconut, and spices are the main agriculture. There, of course, we have fruits and vegetables also as agricultural produce, which we export. Then there are manufactured goods, that is apparels, is one of our main exports. rubber products. We are one of the main exporters of solid tires in the world. Then we have exports leather products, and we also export ceramics, also quite a significant amount of exports. Ceramics are exported from Sri Lanka. Then there are services that we export, like IT services, professional services, that is business process outsourcing assignments that we carry out for people in other countries. These can include legal, medical, accounting, architectural, engineering, and even call centers. We can have those call centers also in Sri Lanka for our export of services. Now here we must emphasize that there is huge scope that is still untapped. I think the role of the professional bodies in Sri Lanka, that is, we have so many professional associations and institutions for engineering, accounting, marketing. For every field, we have a well-established institutions in Sri Lanka. I think they should take the lead role in trying to promote Sri Lankan services, professional services in overseas countries. So next, let's see our imports. Our imports, the main, if you take the products, the imports can be both products and services. Our products that we import mostly, a lot of our foreign exchange goes on fuel. Everybody knows about the problem of fuel. We all experience the problems of shortages because we didn't have foreign exchange. The import of fuel was restricted, and we know how we all suffered. Then we also import machinery, raw materials. We import vehicles, of course. Right now, the import of vehicles have been stalled. There are no vehicle imports right now, not because the market does not need, but because we don't have foreign currency to import them. Then electronic appliances, almost 100% of our electronic appliances are imported. Then certain essential food items we have to import. We have no way of being self-sufficient in certain food items in Sri Lanka, so we have to import them from time to time to feed our people. Then if you take the services, there are certain services that we had to get from overseas. The insurance, although we have so many insurance companies here, all of these insurance companies had to reinsure their risks with a foreign insurance company. So when you reinsure, all the top insurance companies in Sri Lanka, whatever the risk they have, I think I'm not an expert in this field, but I think at least 70% of the risk is reinsured in overseas countries, so that in case of a claim, they don't get the full hit, they will share it with their reinsurer. So when you are obtaining services such as insurance from overseas, you have to pay them premiums, and you have to pay them in US dollars. We collect in Sri Lankan rupees the premiums from our local clients, and what we have to pay the reinsurer in foreign currency. Then the same with airline services. We have Sri Lankan Airlines, but Sri Lankan Airlines can't go to all the destinations that our Sri Lankans need to travel. So there are other airlines also that come to Sri Lanka, and that includes paying them. They will invoice us in foreign currency. We have to pay them in foreign currency. So some of the airlines have stopped coming to Sri Lanka these days because we had not been paid the due bills. So they are sometimes they want to suspend their services to Sri Lanka. Then technical know-how. The country develops by borrowing technical know-how. We get technical know-how from developed countries. All our industries have used at one time or the other technical know-how coming from overseas countries, and for that you have to pay. So you just can't create industries and be competitive in the global market without having the state-of-the-art technology, or at least the technical know-how to produce a product and service at a competitive price, acceptable, and with a quality acceptable to the global markets. So you need technical know-how services, which also costs us money in foreign currency. So those are the imports. Then let's touch a little bit on the balance of trade. Now, balance of trade is defined, the difference between, which is simple, with the difference between the exports and the imports. Now, Sri Lanka in 2019, we had a deficit, that is imports were more than exports, of 10 billion. That is 23 billion as against 12 billion. 22 billion against minus 12 billion. That was 10 billion. Even USA had a deficit. But a deficit of balance of trade does not mean that you are not doing well. But you must be able to finance the balance of trade. So if there's a deficit, there should be a way of financing it. Now, what have we been doing all these years? Although every year our imports have been much more than the exports, the deficit have been widening more every year. There's a yawning gap between the two. So we had to find ways of balancing. How are we going to balance? Because people don't, when we import, you need foreign currency. That's the huge exact problem we have right now. So how did we balance our deficit? The shortfall was balanced by using proceeds coming from tourism. That is one. Then that when the tourism was doing well in Sri Lanka, there was a lot of dollars coming in to the country. I think during our peak, we used to get about 6 billion US dollars. Then there are foreign remittances. That is Sri Lankans working overseas are sending money home. So that also comes in foreign currency, which has sort of been limited during the past few months because of certain regulations, and also because they could get a better rate from other sources such as Undial and Hawala, which are not official ways of transferring funds, but you can get a higher rate by using that. So what we need is the funds coming through the government sources or through the banks established in Sri Lanka. That is all that we need to balance our deficit. Well, the funds that come through Undial or Hawala cannot be used to balance our trade deficits. So Undial and Hawala has been a huge problem for us in balancing out exports and the deficit caused by high imports. And that is also one of the reasons. Then also, if we can get loans from foreign currencies, then also we can fill the gap between the imports and exports by using loans from foreign currencies. So the famous thing what we have been doing for the last several years is what you call international sovereign bonds, which are basically loans taken by the Sri Lankan government from in foreign currency. And we have been taking loans every year and using them to fill the deficit, fill the gap between inflows and outflows. And the second thing is to spend money for Sri Lankan projects in Sri Lanka. Especially, we have been building bridges, we have been building ports, we have been building airports, and so many things, also through foreign loans. So all of them did not go only to fill the gap between the export and imports, but also to other areas as well. So that's what has happened. So balance of trade is different to what is balance of payments. Now, balance of payments is all the inflows. That is all what I explained right now. That is from exports. You get some foreign currency, then you get foreign currency from tourism. Then you get foreign currency from foreign remittances of Sri Lankans living overseas. Then foreign investment, some foreigners invest in Sri Lanka. And foreign loans that we get. Then that minus outflows is the balance of payment, which is the money we spend on imports. Then also loan repayments, we have to pay interest as well as capital. Then there are foreigners who invest in Sri Lanka, they take their investment out sometimes, and also sometimes they take their profits out. So those are also outflows. So as long as we have balance of payments surplus, then even if there's a balance of trade deficit, there is no issue. So in other countries where there is a deficit in the balance of trade, they have a balance of payments surplus because other areas have contributed. For example, Thailand, they get a lot of money from tourism. Then China, also they get a lot of money from other services. So we have this issue of not getting enough funds from our non-trade inflows. So now all the trade inflow is exports. We need to get more inflows from tourism, foreign remittances, investments, and loans in order to bridge the gap between the imports and exports, which is widening right at this moment, unless we sort of put artificial controls. So that's some sort of background on why international trade management is important to Sri Lanka at this moment of time. Let's look a little bit about the theoretical background on why international trade management can help us. Now, international trade management theories have been there for several centuries. The first theory was from a person called Adam Smith in 1776, in the late 18th century, where he came out with a theory called absolute advantage. If there are two countries, country A and country B, say Sri Lanka and India, if Sri Lanka is good in producing rubber goods, better than India, we should be only producing rubber goods. So because we are better than the other country. So country should focus on fields that they have an absolute advantage. That's fair enough. If you have an advantage, you can be more cost effective. But later on, when the resources were found to be limited, because for producing anything, you need resources, you need material, you need labor, you need energy, you need land. So people found, the economists found, that resources are not unlimited, they are limited. So with the resources, limitation of resources, we finding that resources are limited all over the world, then the theory of comparative advantage, which was first brought up by Ricardo in 1870, was sort of practiced. The theory of comparative advantage is you may be good in more than one product. That is, for example, Sri Lanka, let's say an example as earlier, Sri Lanka and India. Sri Lanka may be good in producing rubber goods better than India, and perhaps also good in producing ceramic better than India, right? So both we are better, but we don't have enough resources or capacity to do both for the quantities that the market demands. So we have no capacity to do both, but we are good, better than India in both the items. So obviously, somebody will say Sri Lanka should produce both, but we have limitation because the resources are limited to, and we don't have resources to do both. So then what happens is, Sri Lanka, for example, if now India is behind, this is an example, is behind Sri Lanka in the efficiency of producing both rubber goods and ceramics. But the difference between the efficiency of producing rubber goods between Sri Lanka and India, Sri Lanka is way ahead. But difference between the productivity of producing ceramic goods between India and Sri Lanka, although Sri Lanka is ahead, it's not, the gap is not so much. So Sri Lanka should focus on rubber goods, which they have a huge advantage, and India should focus on ceramic goods, because Sri Lanka does not have enough capacity, and the two countries divide the two products and trade with each other. So by doing that, both countries will benefit. So both countries will have adequate stocks of the two items. As a result, both countries' trade will be improved. So that's the theoretical background on how international trade management came into being, right? So the main reason, the resources the countries have on producing goods and services are limited, right? So with the limited resources, you have to focus on the item or the product which you have a very good, the best advantage. And that is what we need to look at in sort of developing our exports in Sri Lanka even further, right? Now, also there is something, even if you're good in producing both items, but sometimes, even if we can produce in both and not good in both items, sometimes we can produce a lot of items in Sri Lanka, but we sometimes tend to import. Because if you are not competitive enough in the global market, definitely what you produce in Sri Lanka, you can't send out, right? Because you are too expensive. But look at the other way. Our producing in Sri Lanka is expensive. But if you import, we can get it at a lower price. So the cost of living will come down. If you bring it down at a lower price, the cost of living will come down. Good example is, say, big onions. Now, Sri Lanka also can grow big onions. And then, of course, to protect the farmer, there are heavy duties and other levies so that the Sri Lankan farmer is protected. But if those duties and levies which the government is imposing are taken out, our prices of big onions that have been imported to Sri Lanka will be much less than what we pay for the Sri Lankan manufacturer. So obviously that will help in reducing the cost of living in the country. Now everybody is talking about cost of living. The cost of living can always increase if the local production is not efficient. And there are import embargoes. If the import is not allowed and the local producers are not efficient, obviously the consumer is paying a higher price than what he should be paying. So with imports, you can bring down cost of living in a country. So if you have a good import-export policy, if you have money to import, might as well import so that people in the country will benefit through cheaper products and services. So that's another reason why we should look at international trade. We must look at areas where the Sri Lankan costs are very high and try to see whether it is possible to bring those goods and products at lower cost from producers in other countries. But of course, as I mentioned earlier, especially in food security, we need to look at protecting the local grower, that is the local farmer. And sometimes we might even need to protect the local manufacturer of goods and services. For example, if the country feels that Sri Lankan rubber producers have to be protected, then all imported rubber goods, there can be high import duties and levies. Very often we have duties and levies such as cess, which is imposed to protect the local producer. So all that thing has to be looked into in a political situation as well. And we had to look at the country's security of certain essential goods and services. We can't be too dependent on overseas people because that can be a threat to the country's security. Also, if you are importing, the local producers also will have to compete with the imported products. What will that result in? When the local producers also start competing with the imported products, obviously they will improve their productivity. They'll look into better technology, better ways of manufacturing. Even the agriculture, they will get the better seeds and better fertilizing, better technology for agriculture, and try to compete with the imported product, because otherwise they will not be able to sell properly. There's an equal market for everybody. The status is same for everybody, and there's no protection by the government, then the local producers will always try to improve their productivity and try to compete with the imported products by lowering their costs. So the country will definitely improve out of that. And once they sort of compete with the imported products, they can also look at exporting the same product to overseas countries. So once they can compete with the product or service in another country, of course, definitely they can look at export markets because they will be competing in other countries as well. So now let's see who is controlling international trade. So now we know that international trade will help all countries. So that is, imports also can bring down the cost of living. The imports can improve our productivity, make services more efficient. Then exports can bring us a lot of foreign currency, which can fund the imports. So, but then somebody should be there to control this. So, because now the trading is almost everywhere in the world, all over across the world, the globe, the trading can happen because with the IT technologies, you can be in contact with anybody anywhere in the world at any time. So with that, the entire world became one market. Like the people from any corner of the world can compete with another country in another corner of the world. So that is globalization. With definitely with all these online trades and everything, globalization has taken a lot of interest by everybody. So then there should be rules and regulations on how the international trade should be regulated. Now there are organizations which regulate international trade. Now the main organization which regulate international trade is called the World Trade Organization, commonly known as WTO. They set the rules and regulations for international trade. Now, Sri Lanka has been a member of the WTO, World Trade Organization, since its inception in 1995. World Trade Organization was formed in 1995. Before that, there was a different organization called GATT, that is GATT, which what it stands for, General Agreement and Tariffs and Trade. This was formed in 1948. So 1940, GATT was formed. In 1995, it became WTO. Now, Sri Lanka was also in the GATT. And when the GATT was formed in 1947, Sri Lanka became a member of GATT in 1940. So we are one of the long-standing members of both GATT and WTO. Now, currently, WTO is controlling all the trade. Now, there are 159 countries as members of WTO. I think in the entire world, there are 195 countries, of which 159 countries are members of the WTO, World Trade Organization. Almost all the main countries are members, except a country like North Korea. North Korea is not a member of the WTO. Right? Now, although Sri Lanka became a member since the inception of 1995, there were other countries which are much more developed than Sri Lanka, which became a member much later than Sri Lanka. Now, for example, China became a member of the WTO only in 2001. So until 2001, China was not a member of the WTO. So when you are a member of the WTO, there are preferential duties. For example, the main duty structure for members, for trade between members of WTO is known as the MFN rate. MFN stands for Most Favored Nation. So if you are among the MFN rates, the duties you payable when importing products and services from a member country is not that high. They have set the rates. Of course, there can be levies other than duties, for example, something like that. But customs duty have been set by the MFN rate. And until 2001, since China was not a member of the WTO, Chinese products for export was not that very popular because they are the importing country. When they import products from China, either they had to go through a quota system where the quantities of imports from China are restricted, or there have been high rates of duty which other countries, in the member countries, didn't have to sort of bear. For example, Chinese ceramics before 2001 was almost 35% duty, right? But because they were not member of the MFN. Whereas Sri Lankan exports to other countries were only, with the GSP, it was only about 8.4%. With GSP plus, it was 0, but with GSP, 8.4. So that is because we were MFN country. So there was a huge advantage for Sri Lankans and as well as other countries like Bangladesh, Vietnam, so many other countries over China when exporting products. But all that was lost in 2001 when China became a member of the WTO. They also were able to enjoy the MFN rates. So that was a reason why our exports did not grow since 2001. And also we were not prepared for it. Whereas perhaps Vietnam, Bangladesh may have had other ways, other strategies to stand this threat. But we were not prepared. And as a result, some of the export of manufactured goods from Sri Lanka to overseas, for example, Europe and US, did not grow much from 2001 onwards because of the competition coming from China. Now, so this is because of that monitoring by the World Trade Organization, which is the regulator for international trade. Now, also, international trade requires a lot of documentation because when you're a member of the WTO and also when you're dealing with another country, there's a lot of documentation are needed, and this documentation, the documentation protects both the importer and the exporter. Exporter is also protected, and the importer is also protected, and ensure that the rules and regulations set by the WTO are met. So they also ensure that they are compliant with the country regulations, and also it facilitates transportation of goods through ships or by air. So there is a lot to learn in the documentation process of international trade, which is a very important subject, and everybody who embarks on a career in international trade needs to know, need to master this documentation process. And it's not difficult, but if you know what these documents are, you can easily understand, and I'm sure these will be taught at this course. Now, coming to what we should be doing in Sri Lanka. Right now, if you take the short-term strategies that we should know to develop our international trade, let's first think of exports. Because imports are being artificially curtailed, not because there is no demand, but that have been suspended. Most of the items, imports have been suspended. Let's try to see how we can increase exports. Now, exports, generally, there are imports involved in the exports also. Now, if you take apparels, Sri Lanka's main export right now is apparels. But unfortunately, in apparels, there's a huge component of imported raw materials in the apparel. For example, to my knowledge, if you export $100, there may be import component of about $70 in that particular $100. So we get 100 minus 75 if you take the net foreign exchange. So although our apparels are doing well, apparel market has grown since it originally started in late 1970s. It has grown tremendously, which has brought a lot of valuable foreign exchange to the country. But you have to also look at the net foreign exchange they have brought, because most of the apparel raw materials, the textile, the other accessories, everything has to be imported. So in apparels, it's probably less than 25% of value addition. Now we must look at products and services where we can get at least about 40% net value addition. So if you do that, even with a limited export total, we have the net inflows will be more, because if there's high exports and there are equally high imports, again we will have foreign exchange issues. So, but if you focus more on products and services, which can bring us more net foreign exchange. The net foreign exchange means your foreign exchange you get from exporting the product minus foreign exchange you spend on importing the raw materials and other services for that particular product. So if you try to get that net figure high, probably it can be a solution for the country. So let's see what are the items or services which can give us high net foreign exchange earnings. One item where you can get high net foreign exchange earnings is on services. If you take professional services, it's almost nearly 100% is foreign exchange that is earned, because there's hardly any services that you import unless you have to bring some foreign expertise. But if you use the Sri Lankan, for example, you take the IT industry, other than the hardware costs, if you take the IT industry software development, it's all 100% Sri Lankan skilled people who are working on these industries, and that brings a huge net foreign exchange to the country. So that's an area that we should look at. That is professional services, where the net foreign exchange is huge. Then also there can be products where Sri Lanka can get a higher net foreign exchange. For example, agricultural products. Agricultural products, except for the fertilizer and perhaps the seeds that you may need to import sometimes, rest of the items are basically available locally. So there again, agriculture will also be having a high net foreign exchange earning. So those are two exports where we can sort of focus on. Now, but if you take a country like Singapore, Now, they don't have much resources. If you take, again, I am taking figures of 2019, pre-COVID era, the total exports of Singapore in 2019 was 281 billion, right? And whereas the imports in the same year was 301 billion. So they imported more than they exported. But their gross domestic product, that is, gross domestic product is defined as the value of goods and services produced in the country. So all the, if you add up all the values of the goods and services produced, that is the GDP. That GDP was 397 billion. So these are countries which are developed. And they sort of, because they don't have resources, they have to import all their resources. They didn't focus on net foreign exchange. They focused on the gross GDP because they had other ways of financing the gap between the exports and the imports. So that's another strategy which can suit countries like Singapore, where they have foreign currency coming from other areas. Right. Now, Sri Lanka, the GDP of Singapore is almost 400 billion, whereas Sri Lanka's GDP is only 80 billion. Now you can see Singapore has only about 6 million people, whereas Sri Lanka has 22 million people. So GDP per capita GDP means the total gross domestic product, that is the value of all goods and services divided by the population of the country, that is known as GDP per capita. There's a huge difference between Sri Lanka and Singapore. Sri Lanka, it's only about 3,700, whereas in Singapore, it's about 73,000. So they are 20 times better off than we are. So GDP per capita is an indicator of the living styles and the living style and the condition of that particular country. So Sri Lanka is way behind in GDP per capita. So let's see what other strategies we can do. Now, one I mentioned was the net foreign exchange earnings. So where we focus on products where we can get a higher net foreign exchange. Then there are certain products where we can use something called differentiate. We can differentiate our product from those of other countries. Good example is Sri Lankan cinnamon. Sri Lankan cinnamon is now branded as Sri Lankan cinnamon, like Ceylon tea is called Ceylon cinnamon. Ceylon tea is a brand name. Sri Lankan tea exporters can use Ceylon tea as their brand name. It's a brand name common to all the tea exporters. Similarly, Ceylon cinnamon. Now, this is what we call a differentiation strategy. People who did marketing might know, might recall that there was a strategy. There are Porter's generic strategies. Differentiation is one of those strategies. People who did marketing might recall that. So differentiation strategy can help us in getting entry to markets. For example, definitely there will be a bigger demand for Ceylon tea than perhaps somebody calling Thailand tea, right? Because Ceylon tea has a brand name, brand value, and accepted all over the world. Similarly, when our product is differentiated, Ceylon cinnamon is also supposed to be one of the best cinnamon you can get anywhere in the world. So Ceylon cinnamon also can get premium prices as same as in Ceylon tea. So those are areas that we can focus, differentiate our marketing strategies, and focus on areas where we can differentiate. Another areas that we can do, I know from recently, there are people who are exporting coconut water. I have seen in overseas country, Sri Lankan coconut water, bottled Sri Lankan coconut water. There are people exporting that from Sri Lanka. Now, these are new product. And Sri Lanka is famous for coconut also. So there, again, we can sort of differentiate our coconut water from that of other, say, normal water or other drinks, other soft drinks or whatever beverages. Coconut water from Sri Lanka can be differentiated, and it can also be something like the Ceylon tea or the Ceylon cinnamon. Then also recently I saw a paper article where there are people from Sri Lanka exporting paper made out of elephant dung. So nobody can think of that in another country. Elephants are known all over the world. People have never seen elephants, but they have seen pictures, and they are sort of very enthusiastic about this type of thing in what we have in Sri Lanka. When we say that we produce paper from elephant blood, there will be so many people interested in importing. So those are items that we can differentiate and improve. Currently, there are people exporting them, but of course, that those industries can be developed further. Then also, as we discussed earlier, by promoting imports also, we can increase exports. Good example, Sri Lanka is a producer of producer and exporter of panel boards used by electricians and for electric metering, everything. There are people who require panel boards. Now for panel boards, Sri Lanka has to import steel. We don't produce steel in Sri Lanka, we have to import. So if the duties of steel are high, we may not be that competitive in the local market as well as in the export markets. So we need to encourage import of intermediate products. There's called intermediate products. Those are raw materials needed for exports. We need to give all the assistance to import such products at a cheaper rate, with taking out all the duties and levies. So another product I can think of that we in Sri Lanka can export will be prefabricated steel structures. A few years back, I was involved in a particular building structure in Sri Lanka, a warehouse structure, where the warehouse structure was imported from Saudi Arabia, because Saudi Arabia is famous for fabricating, for exporting prefabricated steel structures. So they don't produce any steel, but they import the steel, fabricate it there using their designs, probably which is also they have developed expertise in giving them the design, and then produce it and export. Now Sri Lanka can do that very well. We have very competent engineers who can do the necessary design and all what is required for the engineering know-how. We don't need to import any of this know-how. And also, if you can get the steel at cheaper rates, we can export prefabricated buildings, steel buildings, which can bring, because prefabricated buildings are extremely expensive, and that can bring a considerable amount of foreign exchange. Then another one that we should look at, and which the governments past governments have always been looking at this, with more free trade agreements. Now, free trade agreements allow countries even to bypass the MFN. So we can have a free trade agreement between Sri Lanka and India, where Sri Lankan products can even have duty-free access to India, and Indian products have duty-free access to Sri Lanka. So there were people who were sort of against such free trade agreements being formed, thinking that it will be a problem for the Sri Lankan producers and the Sri Lankan professionals, because there can be services also that can be imported. But overall, most countries which have free trade agreements have developed. For example, Singapore have free trade agreements in many countries, and they develop because they have access to other countries. If we find difficult to access other countries because of we are not competitive due to high duties and levies, I think free trade agreements is an answer. So we need to look at countries where we have potential to export our products and services and negotiate with those countries for free trade agreements. That is something that previous governments have been doing, and I think we need to focus on that even more, although there can be resistance in Sri Lanka saying that free trade agreements might not help the domestic producer who is focusing on the local market only. But free trade agreements can help both the exporter and the importer, because the exporter can get the raw materials also at a cheaper price from those countries and re-export with the duty-free access to those markets. Then another area that we can look at is outsourcing. Now, outsourcing is that it's something like what Ricardo, that is a theory of comparative advantage, where you do focus on things that you can do best. Now, sometimes in Sri Lanka manufacturers, we have to export items where we are not very comfortably producing here because we are not that competitive, right? So, for example, if there is an opportunity for us to import that product or at least part of that product in a semi-finished state to Sri Lanka, add value to that and re-export, we can focus more of our resources on the areas where we have a huge advantage. Our core competencies can be maximized. The advantage, the results from our core competencies are maximized. So that is, for example, I'll give one example. In Sri Lanka, as I mentioned earlier, we do a lot of exports of porcelain. Porcelain is a type of ceramics. We do a lot of exports in porcelain. Now, porcelain, some of the raw materials are available in Sri Lanka. Some of the raw materials are not available in Sri Lanka, which have to be imported. Now, China has almost all the raw materials. Then also, ceramic industry, you need a lot of energy. So when you need a lot of energy, all the energy to Sri Lanka is imported, except for the hydropower, which is less than 50% of our requirement. Most of the energy requirement, whether it's because it's fossil fuels, we have to import. So that means we are not that competitive in making those products. So if there was a company in Sri Lanka, at one time, they imported porcelain blanks, that is white porcelain, from China. They add value by doing the decorations, and they exported to other countries, not to China, but to other countries. And they made huge profits out of it. So that is, you outsource certain part of your production to a country where you can get at a cheaper price. So that is something most exporters should do, because if you take the countries which have excelled in international trade, other than China, the rest of the countries, most of them import a lot of their requirements and they add value to those imported products and re-export. So that is how they make the volumes bigger. Exports are big because they add value. Typical example is Singapore. They have almost no resources, but they bring imports, add value, and re-export. So that is something that Sri Lanka also should look at. Then another one, I'm sure that a lot of people are doing that, but maybe we can sort of focus more on it and get others who are not doing that also to get involved in outsourcing. Then there's branding. Now, we discussed about Ceylon tea and Ceylon cinnamon. The branding of Ceylon tea and Ceylon cinnamon has allowed us to get premium prices. So similarly, we can get premium pricing for products that we are good at. For example, there are certain producers, for example, if you take tea, there are certain brand names which are household names in other countries. Now, when you are a household name, your brand is so famous that you can get a premium price. So all Sri Lankan exporters should look at establishing their own brand names. Brand names cannot be established overnight, but it's a matter of time that you establish a brand name. If you have been consistent in your product quality and service, definitely people will ask for your brand, and because they know that the reliability is there, and the branding can help you in getting premium prices. There are a lot of Sri Lankans who are now brand conscious, the Sri Lankan exporters, and I'm sure these exporters can grow their exports in the near future because of the brand name, because of the brand name loyalty they have got from their consumers. Then also another area that we should look at is the policies, the country policy, and also how you price and cost payment methods. I will not go into detail because I think I have gone more than the time allocated to me, because this is a vast subject and we will try to cover a little bit of all the disciplines, the economics, logistics, engineering, marketing, everything. So it takes time. So I'm sorry that I have gone beyond the time allocated to me, but I am sure if you decide to embark on a career in international trade, that will be very, very useful, not only to you, but to the entire country. I'm sure that you will find this a dynamic and an exciting field. You can meet people from different countries, you can learn about their cultures, and even long-lasting relationships can be formed. I have friends who I have known for the past 40 years because of my relationship with them as a supplier to their products. Now, most of them have retired, but still we keep in touch. All for the friend with a relationship that started with business. So those people, especially when the last few months when Sri Lanka, we had turmoil in Sri Lanka with all these fuel crisis and all, there were so many of my previous contacts who got in touch with me and asked whether I'm all right. So they are so nice people to build long-term relationships. So I hope this ACITM program, that is Advanced Certificate in International Trade Management, will give you adequate knowledge and expertise. I'm sure it will give, because the syllabus is vast and it's very well presented. And I wish you all the very best for people who want to embark in a career in international trade management. Thank you very much.
Yes, what an outstanding presentation from Dr. Jagat Anil Piris. I'm pretty sure, actually, there's no doubt. So he utilized his wisdom and knowledge with all the audience. So therefore, first, let me offer our appreciated gratitude to Doctor for delivering such a wonderful presentation. And also, we can open this forum for question and answers for next 5 minutes. I do understand time is very much precious, but knowledge also adding quite a lot of value for us to think more areas, what are the opportunities that we can impact when you're moving forward as a very profound country as well. So yes, any questions that you want to ask? So it's a good opportunity. If no questions, but I'm pretty positive that we got really good knowledge, experience, expertise from Doctor as well. So thank you very much for that, Doctor, being with us for last nearly 60 minutes. So it was so outstanding and awesome knowledge for us to think and setting up many more areas when it comes to the international trade management. So therefore, I would like to take this opportunity to offer you our appreciated gratitude on behalf of the management and the board of Colombo School of Business Management, and wish you all the very best for your future endeavors as well, Doctor. Really appreciate that. And thanks a lot. And what I'm going to do is just going to do a bit of a snap through our program as well within next 5 minutes to have a better understanding about the program and the curriculum. So yes, and let me share that with you all. It takes about 5 minutes, so I'm pretty positive you can see this, which is Advanced Certificate in International Trade Management. Actually, we will be doing this program with the courtesy of National Chamber Exporters, as well as the NIOE, which is the National Institute of Export as well. So therefore, this is a very valid professional qualification, which gives you a lot of value for your existing career as well. If you're working already for export-import industry, or people who are looking forward for a break in the job, going for a better elevation as well, and also many other opportunities also available, and not only knowledge, skills, and also your next promotion, setting up your own business as well when it comes to the export import industry, and people who's looking for overseas opportunities, especially in the Middle East or Singapore. We are doing very well. International trade management, this is another area that you all can focus on that. And yes, and also there are 4 modules. I just take you all through the in a very much snap through. And this is the Advanced Certificate in International Trade Management. Once you complete your advanced certificate, automatically you're qualified for the Diploma in International Trade Management as well. That's a pathway what we have on this particular program. Start with certificate, advanced certificate, then it go up to diploma as well. And this particular module, which is Advanced Certificate in International Trade Management, there are 4 units. First, number 1 is Theories of International Trade and Trade-Related Organization. There are many areas when you're going to cover this particular unit. Actually, objectives of module: expand knowledge, which is very important as well for the participant, and also theoretical manner as well, how international trade and trade-related organization on international trade, actually that's been contained in many areas. and which is international trade theories. There are many areas like mercantile, absolute comprehensive fact, and also country similar theories, product life cycles. There are many theories that you can learn on internal trade, and also reason, option, and concerns internal trade as well, which is organic products. So that's going to be actually a very first unit. And then export import from Sri Lanka perspective, which is a balance of trade, which is already I actually discussed about the doctor as well during his presentation. And yes, and that's been allocated for 10 hours of knowledge, where assignments also you've got to spend about 15 hours and self-study about 10 altogether, which is 35 hours that we're expecting to cover. And the unit 2, or the module number 202, which is the second module, which is accounting for decision making, where we actually covering basic accounting principles and concept as well, like finance and accounting, for you all to make the certain decisions, which is very important when you are in this particular sector, this trade. So that's number 2. And number 3 will be, that's model number 3, international trade process and custom procedures relating to trans-border transaction, which is very, very vital to get the know-how on this particular area, especially custom procedures and processes. So also that model going to improve your skills, knowledge, and also preparation of the how effectively that you can adapt yourself for the documentation relating to import and export custom compliances, very, very important as well, because this learning going to add a lot of value for you to make the right decision and taking your career for next step as well, next level. So that's advantage. So that the content of module is given, but I'm not going to cover this particular student handbook that you'll be getting once you get enrolled for the program, and which is a very, very valid handbook. And the number 4, module number 4 is logistic. Marine insurance also will be touching, and other supportive activities of international trade, which is very vital, which gives you a lot of knowledge for the participants, especially procedures related to international trade as well. So content of the module, e-commerce, knowledge export, value chain management, logistic management, sanitary and phytosanitary measures as well, which is called SPS, very, very important as to get the knowledge on this particular area, and technical barriers on trade as we'll call TBT. And export credit insurance, there are many areas that we'll be covering on this particular 4th session as well. And yes, we'll be evaluating in your attendance, well as we'll be offering assignment after each and every module. So once you submit, we'll evaluate. Based on that, you'll be getting some 60 points from the assignment, well as attendance, which is 40% based on your weightages average score as well. So we'll be having lectures starting from next Thursday, which is going to be 22nd September, Thursdays and Mondays, twice a week. We'll be starting from 7 p.m. to 9:30 p.m., which is going to conduct online. And the beauty about the program, our lecturers are having a lot of expertise in the industry, especially industry. There are 4 different lecturers conducting 4 units. So they always get engaged with you all. And also when you need further clarification or any assistance about this particular area, actually you'll be building a rapport or relationship with the lecturers where they offer your services during offline as well. Not only during your lectures, even offline. So anytime you can get in touch with them, they will give you right guidance, right advice. So how you can take your knowledge forward as a knowledge driver. So first lecture will be starting next week, Thursday at 7 p.m. After that, Thursday, Monday. It is a 3 months program, 3 months program. So we are just hoping to complete within actually this is September, October, December. By first week of January, it will be complete the entire program by submitting your assignment as well. So yes, apart I explained to you certificate international trade manager, after the advanced certificate, diploma international trade manager, but this time we'll be starting from advanced certificate. And after that, we'll be having our diploma in international will be starting from next year, January onwards, that as well. So once you complete this by first week of January, you automatically get qualified for your diploma as well. So the investment, of course, it's going to be about 55,000 for the program. However, actually, we should be able to offer you a special discount as well. the special discount if the current contest for the scholarship discount will be offering. So you'll be getting 7,500 rupees off from the 55,000, where you'll be getting 40, you're paying only 47,500. So still you can get enrolled because there are a few more seats are available, because your first lecture going to happen next Thursday. We encourage you all to get enrolled as well. There are people already enrolled because they already got that discount as well. This particular discount is open till next Monday. Next Monday, you can redeem it. That scholarship we call. Until next Monday, you can redeem it. Therefore, you can call us on our numbers, which is already given, 0703676767. And also, I have mentioned another number called 0703667690. You can contact us on both numbers. Again, I'll repeat it, 0703676767, 0703667690. Please contact us on those numbers. So we are delighted to explain about the program further, give the right guidance, which is much more required information. So we should be able to give you, so for you to have a very professional qualification in the industry, which is international trade management. So therefore, people already in the industry, yes, of course, they can take their career forward for their promotions, knowledge, and having a break in the job as well, or maybe they're looking forward to joining overseas company as well. When these particular professional certificates are available, then your actually pathway is much more easier and smoother as well. So that's why I said this is a professional qualification. You get the skills knowledge as well, but it's not a skill-based program, but you get the skill, but however, additionally, you get the professional qualification, which is related to the industry, right? So export, import, maybe shipping, logistics, many other areas be covering as well. So we'll be encourage you all to please enroll with us. So our first lesson going to conduct on the next week first, Thursday at 7 p.m. After that, Monday, Thursday, we'll be conducting lecture through Zoom. So we'll be sharing the student handbook on next Thursday, where you get all the guidance given, everything on there. So once again, thank you very, very much for your participation with us this exciting night on Wednesday with Colombo School of Business and Management. So I would like to once again offer my appreciative gratitude to management and the Board of Governors of Colombo School of Business Management, given this opportunity to us to get engaged with the all potential to get conducting this wonderful webinar. And Dr. Actually, thank you so much, and all the thank you so much for all the participants as well. And same time, I would like to thank National Chamber of Exporters as well. CEO of Mr. Marika has given a tremendous support to us to take this program forward with the support of NIOE, National Institute of Exports as well. So once again, thank you so much. We wish you all the very best. Good luck. Please contact with us. We shall give you further details. All right. Bye from CSBM. All the very best for your future endeavors as well. Thank you very, very much.